Here's my 2007 Tab. The window broke right along the frame here. That piece cracked on the top. That piece mates to this channel up here, and where it broke was right here on the edge of the window. I'll pan along there and you can see where it had broken off. So I ordered a new window, and I'm going to try and make some video steps of replacing this one in case anybody else needs to do this. So here's the old window getting ready to come out. I've taken the handles, or loosened the inside handles, the two bottom ones, left it attached to the two top ones. First step is to remove both of these at the same time. There is a small hole right here where that tool is. You put something in there. I've got a small pick. Put that pick in there, push down, and then the handle slides. Okay, we'll try that again. The handles need to come off, and there's a small hole. You put a tool in and push down, and then the window, this piece and this piece plastic, will slide off. You can see it's part way off right now. That little piece is sticking out. This top piece will slide that way. So once you push down, you just need to pull back like this to pull that off. I'll show a picture of it when it's off in a minute. Alright, there are those clips after they've both been removed, or this one's been removed. You can see it slid out this way, which with the window on it, the piece on the window would have to come back towards the camera. And the same thing on this side. So the next step is to remove all these window mounts. There's one here, one that holds this bracket on, two on the bottom, one there, and one there, and then the one here, and then the one that holds this bracket on. And then this whole piece of weather stripping here, back up, all of that weather stripping has to come out, and this top bracket here has to come off and be replaced by the bracket on the new window. Not sure if it matters, but on the old ones, these are the little clips. You notice there's an A and a B. The B is towards the outside, the A is towards the inside. Just making a note of that in case it's important later. Okay, I've got all the clips out of the window. We're starting from right in the center here. I'll zoom up and then walk towards the center. There's a seam right here. This piece is glued down, but you can start by pulling it up right there. I'm just going to work my way around and take the whole thing off. Here's another important point about how this appears to be put together. This piece was tucked underneath both sides of the weather stripping and lapped over about 4 inches here on the bottom. So I started peeling up that lap, and I'll probably peel it all the way around. It looks like it's coming out, and again, it's just, you can see how it's tucked under either side there. So pull that all the way out. And I believe the new window came with new material, but I'm going to keep this just in case. So there's the last of that. Okay, it's a good thing I pulled out that piece of middle gray rubber from in this channel, because there are fasteners underneath here. There's one. They're located all around. I started pulling up the material here and noticed there was a fastener rusted out, rusted head of a fastener down there in this aluminum channel. So I'm going to pull out all these fasteners next and then pull up this. Okay, I'm just going to video the locations of those screws and count them. So there's 1, 2, this was a bracket, 2, 3, bracket, 4, bracket, 5, 6, 7, bracket, 8, bracket, 9, 10, bracket, 11 fasteners in there. Okay, last point about this, it's all off, but notice there's a seal on the outside. There's no seal on the inside. That's how this is oriented. So the seal goes to the outside, comes off like that. And then here's what the frame looks like. Notice it's got this aluminum channel on the inside. I missed one of the fasteners there. I'll take that out in a second. But all these holes, these are bracket holes, the ones up close to the edge. These are those holes that are holding the part down. There's foam in the corners here, so this aluminum channel is only out, is only in the straight sections, not in the curved sections. And then in fact in the roof, it looks like it's mostly foam everywhere, although this center one here has something to bite in underneath. I'm not sure what it's biting into, but there is a little break in the foam right here for that channel, and there's a similar break over on this side. So onward. So now that I've got the trim off, I'm starting to think about putting new trim on. There's an adhesive that was used to hold that on. It reminds me of tacky tape that you use on a roof to seal between strips of metal roofing. Roofers call it tacky tape. It's gray and it's sticky, so I'm going to see what I have that's similar to that. I do have some tacky tape, and if it looks the same, it's not everywhere. It looks like there were pieces put on here and there, or beads of it run here and there. So next step is to clean all that off, and also to remove this bracket up top. First I'm going to verify that the hole spacing is the same for the new bracket. Okay, there's the new bracket, and as you can see, none of the holes line up. In fact, it's a different length altogether. It's about, I've got that end lined up, it's about 2 inches shorter on this side, so I'm gonna use all new holes. It looks like I might be able to get maybe one hole in the center to be the same, and then drill the rest of the holes out to match, I suppose. None of the others line up. That's fantastic. Okay. Here's the back side of that piece of trim after it came off. It came off from right up here. It was attached like this. It had the same gray sticky tacky tape behind it, and the new bar has a piece of that already applied that will squish down when you screw it in. So I'm going to clean all that up, and I'm going to probably grind those holes flush, or grind the pull out from these screws so that they're flat, so the new piece will sit nice and flat up against there. Well, here's another thing. This is going to be a mess to clean all this off. I've been picking at it in one area and hardly done anything. Might get some alcohol. I guess you could be tempted to leave it, but again, all these screws, I'm trying to show it there, they've pulled out significantly, so the new piece won't lay flat against there unless you're using the same holes, I suppose. I also, when I had to come home, I had to tape the new window, or the old window, to get home, and I've got all this residue from the duct tape here that I really want to clean off, so I'm just going to go ahead and spend probably an hour cleaning all this stuff up. Okay, back to it. I've got the trim all off and cleaned up, and then it turns out the trim is the same as the old stuff. The new is the same as the old, but the window doesn't quite fit because of this lower left corner here. I can't back up far enough and hold it. But that's the lower left corner, and that interference with this piece of white trim work is keeping the far side lever from having enough room to engage. So I think what I'm going to have to do is trim this piece of window here. There's nothing about that that has to do with the sealing of the inside, so I think there's no problem. So just for reference, here's the far side window and what it looks like. I'm going to zoom in and show that corner. So it's got a much more rounded edge, and this little gap down here and this gap here on the side is what I'm thinking I might try and match by grinding the corner of the new one to fit in there. That's a pretty tight fit right in the corner. Okay, so I'm going back in with the inner gasket. I'm reusing the same one. Turned out you did not have to remove this trim. It's the same as the other trim. I went back with the old trim because the holes were already there, and I'm going to use the same inner gasket, this gray one here, because the holes are here. This is pretty tough to get back in. What you have to do is bend it into a V and then feed it through. I've got it all done except this last part. The corners are particularly tough because you bend it into this V, and once you've done that you can push it back in like that and flatten it out, but the corners are tough to do. So I've got one more corner to do, finish this up. I would pay attention when you take it out, if you do take it out, to which way it goes back. Some of the screws were rusted underneath, so I'm replace those screws. Okay, I'm getting ready to make a shim to hold the bracket out away from the window and engage. I've taken the bracket off. I've got a piece of shim stock that I've already checked that does work. It is 0.187 thick. I'll check that again. Yeah, 190 thick. So I'm going to cut it to width and then drill one hole, bolt it together, and then match drill the second hole to make sure that it fits. Okay, here's the setup for the first drill. I've got a clamp. I'm going to drill the back hole there. I'm using an 11/64 drill bit to start. Okay, now that I've match drilled them, I'm going to go through with a 3/16 inch drill bit to enlarge these a little bit, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, this is why you need to over drill those holes slightly. So you need the 11/16 or 11/64 bit, because that just matches the hole size in the bracket here. And if you just stop with that, the holes you drill won't be big enough to go over these little studs. And be careful when you're putting this on. If you push it too hard, you can push the piece of the window that is on the inside right off, and once it's done there, you're done. There's no way to get that piece back. The window has to be separated to do that. So you're looking at buying a new window. So be careful there. Okay, a couple more tricks here. One is I'm parked close to a wall, so I can use this little piece of trim board to hold the window up while I'm working on it. And you're going to take this window on and off 30 or 40 times if you're lucky, so having that is a big help unless you've got a full-time helper. Second thing I've done is shim up the bottom a little bit. I'll go inside and take some video why that's necessary. So these two handles, if you let it rest on the bottom outside, those handles won't quite reach up to where they need to go. I'm going to try it here and see if this works. I may need to cut those shims down a little. Alright, a few other things here. This bracket looks like it will fit without a shim under it. It might bind a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. I'm going to try it without a shim because I'm running out of plastic. These two, however, the bottom two, if you put the bracket down here, looks to me like it's not going to line up. So I think, well, it might be worth a try. I'm definitely going to have to shim this one up to align, and if that's done, maybe it won't need a shim, but I do think it needs probably the same shim as over there. So I'm going to cut the brackets to lift this. As you can see, there's a significant amount underneath there, probably 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do that first. Okay, so here are the new brackets, lower brackets installed for the lower handles. That's the wooden shim underneath it. Notice that that hole doesn't get used. You had to pretty much move them over the length of the bracket, and I used one of the existing holes but not the other, so I'll fill that with silicone. Same thing happened over here. These go in without any shims. Then the window, all 4 of these have shims on them. You can see the little white plastic shim. I use the existing screws for those. It's kind of a specialty screw. For these you have to buy longer screws. They're a Philister head. I had to buy 1.5 inches after I put the shims in. Okay, here it is from the inside with all the latches closed. They all look like I've got clearance, and I'm going to go with that. So now the last part is to attach the bracket up above here, and that's definitely going to take 2 people. What I think we have to do is peel the sticky layer off the back of the hinge, get the window in place and press it up tight, then lift the window up and screw the holes while somebody holds it without moving. That'll be a bit of a trick. Before doing that, you have to make sure that the 2 latches on the side have about the same clearance. This gap in here, so I'm very close to that. Looks like actually those could use a shim to move them out a little bit more, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so here's my trick for avoiding 2 people and trying to open the window to make the hole. What I've done is I've gotten some transfer tape, gotten the window placed right where I want it, marked where the edges are, and then put some 2-sided tape on the back of this piece of wood and then stuck it up there. So now I'm just going to pull the window down, take the bracket off, slide the bracket up, make sure it's aligned this direction with the marks that I made here, and then screw it in. Okay, so the window's installed. Another suggestion is put tape on these brackets so they're not flopping around while you're trying to do this. I taped the top arm in place and then taped it to the window, tilted in a little bit. Did the same here. Looks like the trick with a piece of wood worked just fine. I have already taken it off, but there it is installed. And here's what the screws look like underneath. Those holes probably won't cause any trouble, but I'm going to get a little bit of tacky tape myself or something and stuff in those holes from the old screws.